Witches, am I right? If you re a woman in Hollywood over the age of 35, you've probably played one. In fact, you're probably in the process of playing a witch right now. This can speak to many facets regarding the way we view women in Hollywood, but I don't think all of them necessarily bad. Go. Go away. No longer is the witch a one-note archetype. No, sir. Now she is a complex figure with motivations and a backstory. Some of the time. With that in mind, who better to talk about than the Wicked Witch of the West, arguably the most famous witch of the 20th century, and the template for a good 30 of all Halloween costumes. So what even is a witch? Witch is a pretty broad term. It can apply to pretty much any magical woman, although the connotation does tend to be pejorative. One of the earliest examples was the Seer of Endor, which was later translated as the Witch of Endor, whom King Saul of Israel goes to learn the future because God want to talk to him. Witches are often a source of dangerous wisdom we see similar to the Witch of Endor thousands of years later with Macbeth. Weird sisters. Again, they re not really evil purse, but they re still mysterious and scary, and you don't want to go there, Macbeth. During the Middle Ages, as Europe got more and more, well, shitty, the idea of the witch became more and more associated with the Christian devil. The archetype of the old hag becomes more prominent. Witches became associated with brooms. Where did the broom thing come from? Well, it's hard to pinpoint exactly. But the root of any folk till they deal with some cultural anxiety, and the witch archetype is European anxiety about women straying from the very narrow box set out for them. So witch iconography utilizes signifiers of the domestic I Oh, You re supposed to use that broom to clean the floor, not flee around. So when we look at the Wicked Witch of the West, what we see is a distillation of all of these many hundreds of years of iconography into the ultimate modern archetype for the witch. She's got it all, except for the cat. She's got flying monkeys instead. Originally a children's book villain, the last 100 years have seen the Wicked Witch of the West be expanded upon in many ways, but being honest, we are pretty much going to use the 1939 film as our bedrock for this discussion as much as, if not more so, than the original book. Which is an important distinction to make for one reason. The 1939 film is still under copyright while Frank Baum's The Wonderful Wizard of Oz is not. So as always, as there are roughly 1 billion different versions of The Wizard of Oz, this does not include every single version of the Wicked Witch of the West. So, With that in mind, The Wicked Witch of the West. There were entire books dedicated to political interpretations of Baum's fiction. Not that he was necessarily doing it deliberately. The intentionality of anything he put in his books is completely up for debate, but reading politics into the world of Oz is super popular and super common. The ruby slippers in the 39 version, in the book they were silver slippers and they represent like the gold standard and the silver at 16, well, actually no, the yellow brick road is the like dissolution of the gold standard or something. I don't know. And this is not by Baum's admission. This is just popular conjecture. That said, the world of Oz is one in which almost all of the power players, good and bad, are women. So when you look at all that and Baum's political leanings, it's no coincidence that these books came out during the height of the suffrage movement. In the grand scheme of Baum's universe, the Wicked Witch of the West is not a huge player. She's only in that first novel, and even then, not in towards the end when the wizard gives Dorothy and her pals a murder quest. And the book's version of the witch is nothing like what we've come to associate with the words Wicked Witch of the West. She doesn't have green skin, she doesn't have a broom, she's short and frumpy. The wizard doesn't ask them to grab anything from her. Dorothy does with her out of spite rather than trying to save the scarecrow, but is likewise surprised that water melts her. So rather than chief antagonist villain ultra of the universe, this witch is more just an obstacle that needs to be overcome in the first book. But at the end of the day, not a huge power player in the grand scheme of Oz. So what would change that perception? Where the book is episodic, structured more like The Hobbit, I mean the book, not the 9-hour epic. The 1939 film takes on a much more traditional Hollywood structure, setting up the Wicked Witch as the chief antagonist even before Dorothy gets to Oz. We first see her, arguably, or her equivalent, as a miserly old spinster named Miss Gulch. It was after Dorothy's dog, Toto, because Toto bit her. My leg. Me, she bit you. No, her dog. Oh, she bit her dog. Gail Sondergaard was originally cast as the Wicked Witch when the film was more overtly influenced by Disney's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. The Wicked Witch was going to be a post-Apple Disney witch, but a sexy, intimidating, pre-Apple kind of witch. I've never heard of a beautiful witch before. Only bad witches are ugly. Well, there you go, Dorothy, words to live by. When they decided to lose this felt sexy witch and do the more conventional ugly hag witch instead, Gail Sondergaard did not like that, and she bailed. And in comes Margaret Hamilton. These things must be done delicately. Margaret Hamilton gunned real hard for this part, and she loved being the witch, despite the fact that in the process she got burned really bad. Like literally, with fire. On this little elevator that went down slowly or went down fast, in this case, it dropped out from under me, and we ran to the first aid station. I had a 2nd degree on me face and a 3rd on my hand. Oh, ha 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 ha. Oh, 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 and they re-mangy little dogs, too. Like it's just timeless. And when you consider what a shit show this was behind the scenes, the sheer number of directors that came and went during production, this movie is kind of a miracle. Oh, 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 oh. And 75 years on, Margaret Hamilton's Wicked Witch of the West is still one of the most iconic movie villains in film history. Ah, you cursed brat. Look what you've done. Next. Oh, please, oh, beautiful one. We haven't had a lunch hour in 6 months. Well, suffering is free for the soul. Now suffer. Oof. So, 40 years pass before we get another big-budget studio Wizard of Oz movie. The agonizingly long The Wiz, adapted from and almost completely omitting the stage musical of the same name, directed by Academy Award-winning director of 12 Angry Men, Sidney Lumet, and written by Joel Schumacher. What an obvious team to create this funky fresh reimagining of the Wizard of Oz. The witchist even mentioned till it's time to go kill her. Her name is Evelyn, and she appears to be the, slave lord of a sweatshop, which is kind of weird. She also has a whip, which is, also weird. Ah. She marches around in what looks to be the most uncomfortable dress imaginable, and has balls on her crown, which might be a reference to this all-seeing telescope eye thing that she has in the book. Like Wicked Witch Prime, this witch is barely in it, but, unlike the Margaret Hamilton version, she actually gets a song. Before she gets melted in perhaps the most melting scene out of all of them. The witch portions are among the better paced in the film. And if we ignore the uncomfortable slave stuff, I even kind of dig her song. Even so, I'm not so sure about this witch. What is hell? Okay, next. Skipping forward almost another 20 years, it is time for our re-examination of the classic witch archetype, and one of the most influential books ever on that topic, Gregory Maguire's Wicked on the Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West. Most of Maguire's well-known books deal with popular stories and characters that just happen to be in the public domain, and Wicked is no exception. The wonderful Wizard of Oz itself and its characters and concepts entered the public domain in 1956. Maine's 1939 film, however, has not. Maguire's book borrows from both, but being a book, it can get away with a lot more than a movie can. Here, the witch name is Elphaba. Get it? Like L. Frank Baum. Elphaba. Get it? Wicked utilizes many book-only concepts, such as the geography of the countries, the shoes being silver, etc. Maguire also introduces many of his own ideas. For instance, not only that talking animals exist, but exist as a different type of person altogether, and that even Oz operates on something of an apartheid system pushed by the Wizard himself. This being Elphaba's main motivation for turning on the system, as she does, becoming wicked. But there are some major elements that are very rooted in the 1939 film. Elphaba's greenness not only isolates her within the world of the novel, it's also a major plot point. See, the Wizard of Oz used this green elixir to basically drug and seduce Elphaba. Mother. Seduce. Not the right word. She's also got the pointy hat, and she got the broom, which she uses for murder at one point. So, one can argue that the most important influences from the 1939 movie on Maguire's book are purely aesthetic, and therefore can't really be subject to copyright law, which is probably true. But since the book got adapted into a very popular and still running musical on Broadway, well, they somehow got away with it. Wicked is kind of musical than musical. Like Your Mom Loves It. Your Mom. It's less political than the book, more about romance and Elphaba's desire to be accepted, and then revolution happens, and the Wizard's less awful. And in a way, it's the perfect Broadway musical. It's based on a familiar thing, but it's still a new story, so you not just watching a stage version of a movie you've already seen. Ahem, hem, 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 hem. Elphaba in the show is a sort of proto-Elsa from Frozen in many ways, not the least of which being originally portrayed by Idina Menzel, whose signature song is Proto-Let It Go. The major difference is the way the romance is handled. She goes into a years-long stupor in the book, during which she gives birth and forgets about it. Apparently, love interest may or may not have died horribly, but is probably dead, but it's not really clear by the end. Musical, she fakes her death and runs off with the bay. The end. Also, the wizard is not as evil, nor is he explicitly a date rapist, so there is that. There is debate as to the merits of the book versus the musical, and I think Gregory Maguire had really interesting ideas in world building, but I don't much care for how detached he is in his writing. I like the book more in theory. I prefer the musical in practice. Next. Oh, man. Why is this called Tin Man? Well, originally, he was going to be the main character, but then it turned into more of just a Wizard of Oz retelling, and so now Dorothy G., her name is D, she comes to the O's. It's called the O's, means outer zone. Well, anyway, so the Tin Man was originally going to be the main character, and it was going to be like a witch murder mystery, but then they decided it should be more of an analogue to the original book, and DG is the main character, but they kept the title anyway. I don't know. My name's Yi. What's yours? Boy, howdy, is it becoming a race to the bottom for who is the worst Dorothy. You guys air out of your tinny minds. Concentrate, concentrate, concentrate. We re talking about the witch. This also purports to be inspired by the public domain book, but of course there are many elements lifted from the 39 movie here. 2. DG, where are you? Dorothy, where are you? Regarding the witch, the elements typically lifted from the movie aren't present, though. No broom, no green skin. The wicked witch in this version is actually Dorothy's sister, and her name is Ascodilia, which I'm pretty sure is the name of one of me fanfic self-insert characters from the 6th grade. Ascodilia's me sister. Here she's more of an innocence lost character, and also, like, possessed. Let go. No. Deej accidentally got Ascodilia possessed by another witch as a child, and they had this special hand-holding magic, but DG fit it up, and Ascodilia got possessed, and then DG got raised by robot parents. We air series 1487. 1480 series 50 nurture units. So, Tin Man straddles this weird line between retelling and completely off in its own little world. Glenda Analogue is here, but she's the mom, because these reboots do so love them some familial things. The witch does not get melted at the end, but instead gets depossessed by hand-holding magic. So rather than melting the witch, sisterly love conquers all. Another proto-Frozen. So that's nice. The witch is gone. It's over. In a lot of ways, Tin Man is the most interesting out of all of these, but I get the impression that it was written by people with, imagination and creativity, and then the studio was like, no, people are stupid. Make it dumber. Come on, Tin Man, have a heart. So, as cool as a lot of the details and ideas in Tin Man are, the watch itself is a bit of a slog. She tried to kill me. No, she did kill you. Next. This special is mine. Kongsa, so you can leave. The sofa, shoes, and the door. So this is the worst puppet movie. Bonjour, which of the West coming at you from a lair of evil. And again, it's a race to the bottom for worst Dorothy ever. Ashanti and Zooey dischannel air neck and neck. Sorry, I know, keep focus. I mean just people who shit on Deanna Ross. Look at the competition. Come on. Check it out, your little show's about to be cancelled. Since Miss Piggy is really the only female Muppet of note, like, come on, Janice Stens, we know she doesn't really matter. Muppetus takes the interesting. And honestly, I'm kind of surprised no one's ever done this before. The approach of having all of the witches played by the same actress. Well, you know, actress. Two of which are involved in the most horrifying scenes ever with a Muppet. This. Whoa, this is a lot heavier than I could get. And then the melting scene, which is probably a low for Miss Piggy. It's definitely a low for Miss Piggy. And that's saying something. I'm not melting. I'm getting skinny. I'm getting skinny. I win, I win. What? And cut. It turns into this, like, Ark of the Covenant kind of horror show. I think it's supposed to be funny, but nobody wants to see this. No one wants to see this. Muppets. So, this was right after the Muppets were bought by Disney and way before the recent Kermessants. By the time you get to the witch, you re longing for death so badly you don't even care how awful she is. Which is good because halfway through the end battle, this happens. And then, just as Dorothy and the Wicked Witch charge at each other, bam! Blow at fight scene. Float scene. What? The Gauls whip out these huge samurai swords, and they just tear it up. I'm talking kung fu. It can't get worse than this, can it? So, I was going to say that the worst thing about you guys choosing, you did this, you choosing the Wicked Witch of the West for this video, was the fact that I had to watch this thing movie again. But then, I had to watch the Muppet version, so that did put it in perspective. Because there's a lot I can live with. I can live with the fact that Franco looks high all the time, and the bottomlessness to how much he does not care about his performance. I can live with the tired-ass shitty, like, Faker is deemed to be the chosen one the second he lands in this wonderful world and he lays to everyone narrative. God, I hated that plot. I can even live with the fact that the studio took a universe that almost always had female protagonists, or males that turned into females, and gave it a male one. But I cannot take the reason why the Wicked Witch is wicked. I want him to see me like this. I want him to know that he was the one who made me this way. It's just so lame. It's like a layer cake of lame. You peel back one layer and it's like, oh really? Like, I don't know what's worse, that it's ultimately like she's a woman scorned by James Franco, of all people. And that's why she's wicked. Or the fact that it's actually, like, a poison given to her by her sister, and she has no agency in her own wickedness. See, it's not her fault that she's wicked, but it kind of is. But it isn't, because poison, but it is. I don't know, it's stupid. It really is the anti-wicked, wherein wicked she was like this anarchic activist fighting for the rights of the oppressed. Here she is, a woman scorned, who isn't really, because hey, it isn't her fault she caught the evil. Her sister gave it to her. Curse you. And it's also the worst performance. They will run and flee for their health. We shall not let them flee. We shall show them no mercy. You are welcome to return. Never. Disney, having to be mindful of copyright ramifications, once again plays a major element here, the most prominent of which was the look of the witch herself, namely, the shade of green that could not be infringed upon, or Margaret Hamilton's laconic black dress. So if you wondering about all that colotage, that's sort of why. Sort of. There are elements to this movie that aren't the worst thing ever. In fact, this movie might have just been passively boring had it not done the thing, but pretty much every decision surrounding the Wicked Witch of the West is the worst decision they could have made. So if anything is going to make you appreciate Wicked, it is Oz the Great and Powerful. Next, the Queen may be evil, but I'm Wicked. Wicked always wins. Woof. Okay, okay. It's not as bad as the last two. Perspective, perspective everybody, we almost done. Once again, a lot based on the 39 movie. You see the copyright side stepping with the off-brand Margaret Hamilton. She's got this weird-ass shade of green that makes her look like she's sweating all the time, but her dress is pretty awesome, so there's that. I have to take it in a little bit at the hips, but it looks better on Mon, you think. This show, huh. Okay, so if you've never seen this show, it's like Disney's great big domestical fanfic. Some of the time. Something something spells something something. Now we in the normal world, but sometimes we not because sometimes there's a curse. This tends to change with the villain. It was the evil Queen of Snow White who was the spellcaster for a while, but in this particular arc it's the Wicked Witch of the West, but then it turns out it's not. Anyway, she is Snow White's evil queen's half-sister because she's always someone's sister or daughter or something. I'm your sister. But Wizard of Oz isn't really a known Disney thing, so why the Wicked Witch? It's not till we get to her tragic backstory episode that we actually get to see Oz and the Oz logo and the Wizard himself, and it's like, oh, I see all. I am Oz the Great and Terrible. Oz the Great and vertically integrated. I'm just a circus huckster. I'm a showman. Oh me God, they are just laying it all out there. I am just a con man. I am a carnival magician. So Wicked Elphaba is green because of a date rape drug. Great and powerful because heart-killing drug. So why are you green once upon a time, Wicked Witch? She's not nearly as powerful as him. She doesn't deserve to have you as a danger. Careful, Selena. You turning green, dearie. Envy will do that to you. Yep, she literally turns green with envy. We'll see about that. She's also motivated by the desire to destroy her half-sister, the evil queen. What the hell did I ever do to you? Yeah, you were born. Well, okay then. It's all rather convoluted. She does get doused by Dorothy, but this doesn't kill her. Rumpelstiltskin does, because he's a major character, and he's also the beast. Just Rumpelstiltskin never breaks, and she doesn't melt. She shatters. So given when this aired, the year after Oz the Great and Powerful was released, we might be able to read this as something of a brand integration. Subtle, but distinctive on its own. But given there's been no real news on the sequel in 2 years, they may have just been hedging their brand bets and keep on borrowing from the legacy of that 39 movie while we there. Disney just wants the rights to that movie is so bad. Something beautifully ironic for Disney wanting to slip in there and wibble their way around all that copyright that Mim still holds for the Wizard of Oz, and yet what company is most responsible for the extension of the length of copyright? Who could it be? To examine different incarnations of the Wicked Witch of the West, to examine different incarnations of the Wicked Witch of the West is to examine our relationship to the iconography of the witch. But as audiences grow and change, We just not interested in the idea of inherent evil witch anymore. The idea that a powerful solitary woman is no longer as strange and perverse as it used to be. Now it's even sympathetic. Sometimes I think maybe Disney should keep its mitts off of us for a little while. There's this episode of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood that featured Margaret Hamilton, and she talks a bit about actually playing the witch and how children shouldn't be scared of her. You know, she was just acting. It's like playing make-believe, and it is the cutest thing. As the but there is one bit that sticks out to me, and I just think that sometimes we think she's just mean and every bad person, but actually you have to think about her point of view. It wasn't as happy a time as she wanted it to be because she just never got what she wanted. See, Maggie gets it. It gets. Even the wickedest of witches has their own motivation. Has their own True, I can't attend you here and now as I'd like. But just try to stay out of me way. Just try. So the last 3 loose canon episodes have been about villains, or at least, villain-ish. So the next theme will be some flavor of real American-ish hero. Here are your 3 choices. You can vote in the link below. If you like this series, please consider supporting it on Patreon. These episodes take a really long time to produce, and I'd like to do it more often. That link is also below this video. And I will announce the winner for this thing on Twitter. Follow me here. And hopefully, I will do it sooner than 2 months from now. And thank you for watching. Thanks for watching.